Hello and welcome to the Aero Army Wyn TT series. Matthew Keenan with you, joined by Carly Taylor. Or Carly, should it be Bienvenue en France? Because this week the race is around the streets of Paris and the famous Champs-Élysées.
Yeah, it's pretty special to have the race along the Champs-Élysées, and it was special when it was added just a couple of weeks ago with the first ever virtual Tour de France racing along it. And it's always special, I think, racing on it, and probably the most iconic road in cycling.
Without question, it is the boulevard for sprinters for sure. And I can recall the first time that I commentated on the Tour de France in 2007. I'd been to Paris before. I'd lived on the outskirts of Paris. I'd been up the Champs-Élysées plenty of times. But it's different when there's a bike race there and it's all closed down and it's the Tour. And you've been there. You were there in 2014, riding the first ever edition of Le Course by the Tour de France. It must have been amazing.
Yeah, I think any cyclist, when they're growing up and they're watching cycling, they see the Champs-Élysées and just dream of one day riding and racing along it. And it was pretty special racing the first ever women's Le Course on Champs-Élysées. And I just remember before the race, all the excitement and the crowd and the nerves as well from all the female cyclists, because we wanted so much to make it a good race and we knew it was such a big thing for female cycling. So I think I was more nervous racing that than a world championship, just because I knew it was going to be so hard, and me being a hill climber and it being more of a sprinter's race, definitely knew it wasn't for me, but definitely was one of my most favorite races, and pretty special.
Before we take a look at the overall standings for the series, and we're going to take a look at each of the grades, one of the significant moments was the second year there where Anna van der Breggen took the win, and there were so many crashes. And just moments ago before we went live, you told me an incredible stat in terms of the amount of crashes on that edition along the Champs-Élysées.
Yeah, well, there was about 200 women racing that Le Course, and it definitely was super slippery. You tried to brake and nothing would happen. And we did a calculation, and it was about 20 riders actually that didn't go down out of that whole peloton. I wasn't one of the 20 riders. I've still got the scars to prove it. But luckily today, the course, I don't think there'll be any crashes in Zwift. And it's going to be some exciting racing.
Well, let's take a look at how they stand in the overall classification. And at the top of the table for the men in the Aero Army Wyn TT is the dominant Zach Johnson, 3 from 3. So he's on 30 points. Eddie Hall is the next best. Kieran Lewis, who works for Zwift, so we might be a little bit biased. We'd like to see him go well. He's in third place. It's then Carl Jury, followed by a young mountain biker, an Australian champion in mountain biking, Dominic Paulili. He's in 5th position. Matt Robinson is the next best. Stenis Kampe is in 7th position. David Mainwaring in 8th, followed by Jaron Walker and then Paul Speed. That's the lineup in A grade. Halfway through, we're in race number 4. B grade, it's Matt Sullivan who's dominating. He's double the points of his nearest rival. It's Jeffrey Pyman who's in 2nd spot. Scott Kenneth is the next best, followed by Jacob McKee, then Alex Smythe, Andreas Menzes from Colombia in 4th position, Tegs Engel in 7th place, Luke McKenzie in 8th position, the man behind Wyn Republic. It's then Dizzy Star Cruz in 8th spot, and then Pat Bevan rounds out the top 10. Luke and Dizzy are locked together in 8th position. Moving across to the C grade general classification, in the overall standings there, it is tight at the top. Ryan Mills is on 14, but so too is Noah DeWright, who's an under 15 rider. So they are locked together at the top of the table, 14 points apiece. And behind them, it's 12 points each for David Byrne and then Tori Otaki from Japan, and Ibi also of Japan, just another point behind on 11. It's then Todd Cockshoot in 6th position, locked together with Mark Padman, locked together with Shine Nakajima. So 3 riders there on 10 points. And rounding out the top 10, 2 riders on 9 points with Dylan Ironwill and Maxi. So that is incredibly tight, just 5 points separating from 1st to 9th. C grade might be the most exciting race of the series. Across to D grade, at the top of the table there, it's Wendy Cho on 30 points ahead of Oliver Lenoz on 17. It's then Ryan Nelson, Cupcake Cartel. I like the sound of that, in 3rd position. Andrew Oy on 9 points in 4th position, followed by Graham Arthur. Martin de Ham is in 5th position. Sprogel McGogle in 7th spot. Then Shelley B from the Aussie Hump Day ride also in equal 7th position on 7 points. Leo Woos is with them as well. And then in 10th spot, it's Karen Lee. Across to the women, and this has been a story of consistency at the top of the overall standings. Jenny Pettinen, she's on 27 points. She has had 3 second-place finishes. Jenny, tonight could be your night. Keely Gamble is the next best. Gabrielle Keely is in 3rd position. She was the winner last week. She's on 19 points. Bronwyn McGregor, who's been consistently good across a number of races on Zwift recently, she's in 4th. Equal with her is Busy Butterworth, also on 15 points. Kath McKay is the next best in 6th. Fran Bamburst, who's been very popular when it comes to getting ride-ons in a couple of events that she's been competing in 7th. Aram Han is 8th. Alex Hailstone in 9th position. And then Kim Garland rounds out the top 10. So, Carly, we've got some tight battles. And we've seen Jenny Pettinen really consistent in the women's racing. 3 second-place finishes. She'd dearly love a win tonight to consolidate her position at the top of the overall standings.
Yeah, it'll be good to see her get a win maybe tonight. Gabrielle Keely's also been riding so strong and winner of last week's, and I know is super keen for tonight as well. So it's definitely a pretty tight battle between the women, and also, like you said before, in C grade too. I saw just earlier there was over 150 people signed up for C grade, and that was actually the biggest grade numbers-wise, with over 100 in D and also in the women. So it's just great to see the whole every grade really being well represented, and it's just showing the whole point of this series, which was to try to just get a PR against yourself and keep fit during winter and keep getting better as the series goes on, which was the whole point and why we created it. So it's awesome to see those grades getting good numbers at the moment as well.
And they're just about to start in race number 4, the Aero Army Wyn TT. It is around the famous course of the Champs-Élysées, which you see on the final day of racing in the Tour de France. It's 10 kilometres. And you made reference there, Carly, to C grade and mass participation. What I like about how tight C grade is, in addition to that, the leader of that category is in the veterans classification. Second place, or equal first place, is in the junior category. So we've got the ages covered off. We've got Australians, Japanese riders. We've got people from all over the globe in that category and lots of riders participating. So good luck to everybody. As much as we'll follow the elites at the front of the race in terms of the action that we'll see, Carly, at the end, we're going to try and take a look at the leaderboard and see who's at the top of the table in C grade. 30 seconds to go, Carly. Let's get down to the action for race number 4 in the Aero Army Wyn TT. Warm-up is all important. Carly, you know the start to this course really, really well in real life as well as on Zwift. As the clock ticks down, the engines are humming, but it's important to get off to a good start, but you don't need to be full gas right out of the gun because it is slightly downhill as they get underway.
Yeah, that's right, Matt. They actually start on the back straight. So they start going down the Champs-Élysées for a little bit first before they do a kind of like a U-bolt area and then start going up the Champs-Élysées, which is the hardest part. So between that 2 kilometre mark and 5 kilometre mark actually is slightly uphill. And they'll see that now as they're going down the other side. So yes, pacing is pretty important, but definitely getting a hard start in these short races as well is important. As you can see now, the riders are going out quite hard, as we're seeing someone already, Garlard at 178 beats per minute. So they've clearly gotten a pretty good warm up.
Yeah, and that warm-up is really important. So you hit the ground running, so to speak, and the engine is purring. And in an event of this duration, Carly, just 10 kilometres, the warm-up will be longer than the actual race.
Yeah, that's right, Matt. I think it's really important to make sure that your legs are ready and your heart's ready. And so most of the time, these riders would be doing a progressive warm up in the gates and getting their heart rate really high, ready to go hard straight away. And we're just looking at Wes Salzberger there now. He has actually ridden the Tour de France in real life as well, and clearly off to a good start. And it looks like there might be a bit of a battle between the Zwift employees, as him and Kieran Lewis are right up the front, smashing it from the start.
I love seeing Wes out there. Wes rode the Tour de France in 2010 as part of the Française des Jeux team, and that year he was also part of the Australian squad to ride the World Championships in Geelong, having played a really important role for Cadel Evans the year before at the World Championships. So for everybody participating in this event, race number 4 in the Aero Army Wyn TT, you are racing against a guy who has ridden the Tour de France on the Champs-Elysees, and we're following him very closely. No pressure, Wes, but we're going to watch your result at the end of the stage.
Yeah, I'm sure he's going to turn himself inside out to try to beat Kieran. But also a man to beat, as we're just on Zach Johnson at the moment. He's been winning. He's won the last 3, actually. So he's won every single one. And I definitely think he's the one to watch. But he also raced last night in the Off the Mat Pro-Am. So maybe he might have a bit of fatigue in the legs. But it's going to be a tight battle by the looks of it between Zach and Kieran Lewis.
Yeah, as they make their way down towards the Place de la Concorde. This is an area when we see the final stage of the Tour de France where the sprinters are trying to get their lead-out trains organised. Zach Johnson is powering away. We can see the chase by Al McKenzie of Total Rush. So this is not Luke McKenzie of Wyn Republic. This is the other Luke McKenzie, and this one is riding strongly up towards the front. Back to Wes Salzberger from the Zwift headquarters Rockets. He's also part of the Team Time Trial squad for the Zwift headquarters team that race on a Friday.
Yeah, he's super strong. And we're just seeing the women now at that 2 kilometre mark. Brie Playel, she's another super strong Swifter and races pretty often in our Zwift races. So it's going to be, I think, a really close battle in the female races as well, as it has been in the last couple of weeks.
Following the progress of the women, Carly, on Zwift Live, I can see that your friend, Gabby Keeley, she's tracking ever so slightly ahead of Jenny Pettinon. So Jenny, again, the leader of the series, she's consistent. She's sitting in 2nd position in the overall standings. As we're now on board with This Is Jones, who we're following, who's also put in a strong performance. Back to Wes Salzberger.
Yeah, it's really...
He knows the road well.
That's right. And he's been really a big part of this whole series and getting it in Zwift. So clearly he probably wants that unlocking game to match with some in real life jersey as well. And now we're just on board with Jenny Pettinon. So another super consistent rider and always up there like we've been talking about. And she's got 7 points advantage over Keely Gamble and a few more above Gabrielle Keely. So she does have that advantage of having been so consistently up there in 2nd. Even if she does get 2nd today, she will still be winning the series for the women. So yeah, but still going to be a good battle, and hopefully we'll see how she goes in this final part.
Really interesting to watch her power output, Carly. As she's on the slight downhill sections, her power output drops off ever so slightly. So it's down to around about that 4 watts per kilo, maybe a little bit less. But as soon as you see the gradient build up again, as it is now, it's back up to 1%. She's kicked in the throttle a little bit. It went up to 5 watts per kilo, and now she settles into around about 4.5 watts per kilo. And it's on the uphill sections, the drag back towards the Arc de Triomphe, where you can make some serious time gains.
Yeah, we've always been told, I think, as a cyclist, is when the slower parts of the course, of any course, is where you can make the most time gain. So you would always try to do your effort or use as much energy without blowing up in those harder parts. So it's definitely worth going a bit harder on the uphill, because when it's a downhill, everyone can go fast. And Jenny's a smart rider and clearly has that type of pacing strategy. And she actually doesn't seem to be that far behind Wes Salzberger. So she looks like she's going quite well. And Gabrielle Keeley too is on a good one as well, with quite high power. And 4.2
really
kilometers
well
into the race.
And they are big numbers. You're right about the power, Carly Taylor. She is punching out some huge numbers. Your training partner, I think you've got an unfair advantage in your preparation for our Friday afternoon battles in the team time trial. No wonder I'm having difficulty keeping up with you.
Yeah, and this is why I'm having difficulty keeping up with her. She's super strong, and coming from a triathlon background too, time trials is her thing. She knows, and she's got the mental strength to be able to push herself so deep. So yeah, she's definitely come with a pacing strategy tonight, and with that power, I think she's hopefully going to be right up there at the top, and looking like she is. So they're just coming up to the Arc de Triomphe now, and it'll be interesting to see what this second half of the race entails.
And just behind her is Kim Garland, and she's performing pretty well. Meanwhile, out in front, the man who has dominated the series so far, look at this, Carly Taylor, Zach Johnson from the Aussie Hump Day Ride crew is scorching across the cobblestones of Paris. He's extending his advantage. It is Kieran Lewis who is the second quickest at the moment, tracking at almost 20 seconds behind. Zach Johnson is flying.
Yeah, I think that elastic band has snapped with Kieran Lewis. It looks like now, just at that 12-second mark, Kieran might have popped a little bit, but definitely tried to hang in there as much as he could. And it's really impressive by Zach. And also our other riders with, is it Dominique Paoli, and one of your mates?
Yeah.
Was quite up there last week, and looks like he's having another good one tonight.
And what I like, I'm watching his numbers on the Zwift Power platform. His heart rate is 194 beats consistently. It's really high. So regardless of where he finishes in terms of his gap to Zach Johnson, who's leading, what we do know about Dominic is he knows how to push himself.
Yeah, and I don't think that is quite a high heart rate, and it's awesome to see riders like that being able to push yourself. You might not get the results straight away, but eventually they always do pay off, and he'll definitely be getting those. So yeah, definitely a good ride by him, and his power is not too bad either, as we're looking at it now, and it's about that 370 watts. So his heart rate's high, but so is his watts to match it.
Yeah, his numbers are really high. Watts per kilo, riding consistently up around the 6 watts per kilo mark. So that is impressive by Dominic. And what we do know about him, in addition to that, is he's got good skills because he's got Australian titles in mountain biking. This is Eddie Houle, who are now on board with Carly, and he's currently tracking in 3rd position on the road. And in terms of the overall standings, he finds himself in 2nd position. So he's consistent.
Yeah, it looks like as if it's going to be another good ride by Eddie, and keep him on the podium in the overall standings as well. This is definitely the part of the bike race, though, that Yeah,
Keep
I was
going,
just going
Carly.
to say it's the part of the bike race where I think everyone their legs really starts to burn, and it almost feels like you're pedaling squares. There's only like 3 kilometers left to go, but at this high intensity, 3 kilometers feels like eternity. But yeah, these riders are definitely putting on an awesome show for us, and Kim Garland looks super strong and really high heart rate, but sitting at about that 48 kilometers an hour as she comes flying down the Champs-Elysees.
She's currently tracking in around about 3rd position in terms of the predictor for time, but just 1 second behind 2nd place in terms of the forecast, in terms of the quickest time in the women's category. At the moment, it's your friend, Gabrielle Keeley, who is the leader, top of the leaderboard. Here she is. We're on board with her now. 2nd place is Bronwyn McGregor, followed by Kim Garland, and then the series leader, Jenny Pettinan. But the gap between Jenny and Bronwyn is only 10 seconds. So it is really tight at the top of the leaderboard in the women's race. Here is Jenny now riding for the Aero team. That's exactly what you need in an individual time trial. Well, Zach is about to make the turn across the Place de la Concorde, then the right-hand turn before he can finish. He could be able to see the arch. And Carly, look at the speed, 51 kilometres per hour. He is motoring.
Yeah, Zach's flying home at the moment, and another awesome ride by him. He's been unbeatable in this series so far. He raced last night and put on an awesome show in one of our Pro-Am races, and he's just showing his strength again tonight, taking out his 4th win and finishing it in style as he is about to cross the line solo with a pretty good gap, against 2nd, which looks like as if it might be our friend Kieran Lewis.
4 from 4 it is for Zach Johnson in a time of 11 minutes and 45 seconds. This is Kieran Lewis for the 2nd week in a row. He's tracking on finishing in 2nd position. We've got Eddie Houle, who's just behind him, followed then by Jesper Verhoeven from the Netherlands. But this is another solid ride from Kieran Lewis. Importantly, it keeps him up towards the top of the leaderboard in the general classification. He'll get 1 point closer to Eddie Houle. And here is Eddie now making his way down to the finish line as Kieran Lewis is about to stop the clock. It's Eddie Houle who will go across the line in 3rd place.
Yeah, it looks like as if it's going to be a really good battle between 2nd and 3rd in the overall series between Kieran and Eddie now. I think Zach's got a pretty big buffer, but yeah, the minor placings are going to be awesome. So we're just seeing more of our A-grade riders. Tahara crossing the line there, getting a top 10 finish themselves.
Good ride by Tahara. Also in the race today, as we go back to Jenny Pettinan, we've got Drew Ginn in the race, and he's not too far off the pace. He's 45 years of age, but I think he's won 3 Olympic Games gold medals as a rower. He's been pretty impressive as a bike rider also, with an Oceania title in the individual time trial. Great to see him participating in this event. Here's your training partner, Carly Taylor. It's Gabby Keeley making her way towards the finish line. I'll let you do the honours.
Yeah, it's making me feel better about myself seeing Gabby smash these races and win, because at least I know that she's putting everyone else in the bots as well as myself. So another awesome ride by Gabrielle now as she's about to cross the line and get her 2nd win for the Aero Army Wyn TT series. She's also a Wyn ambassador, so I think this is pretty special to her, and I'm sure Wyn are pretty happy to see her winning the series as well for the women.
No doubt. We're seeing plenty of flurries come through towards the line now for the minor placings. That was Ochoa making their way through. Zukozamito is now just gone through the finish line. Plenty of riders from Japan in this series, which I really have liked. Well, Carly Taylor, I've managed to take a quick look at the results, and the gap for Zach Johnson, he won by 33 seconds on a 10-kilometre course, and Kieran Lewis in 2nd position is not slow.
Yeah, exactly. Kieran Lewis normally puts us to the sword in bike races, so it just shows what another level Zach Johnson is at the moment. But yeah, that's a massive gap. And also to think that 4 kilometres in, they were neck and neck and really close. So Zach Johnson must have put in a massive effort up that hilly part of going up the Champs-Elysees towards the Arc de Triomphe.
Well, he has got a big future ahead of him. Throughout the off-season for Richie Porte, Zach has been one of Richie's training partners, and hopefully, fingers crossed, everything goes according to plan at the Tour de France this year. We'll see Richie riding up the Champs-Elysees in almost 4 weeks' time as the Tour gets underway this Saturday in Nice. For Zach, I think there's a lot to look forward to. In terms of the women's race, it was your training partner, Gabrielle Keeley. She won 3 seconds in the end. It was her advantage ahead of Bronwyn McGregor. That was tight.
Yeah, that's a pretty tight, close battle. And it's awesome to see so many women participating in the race and numerous winners as well. It's good to kind of have a mix up there, and the talent is quite deep. So yeah, obviously too, awesome ride by Gabby, and I'm glad that she's going well and representing Wyn really awesomely.
And for Jenny Pettinen, she finished in 4th position, so she was the series leader. She will stay at the top of the leaderboard. Consistency is all important. She's been second, and 4th, so she still stays at the top. We'll bring you the general classification standings in just a moment. We're just waiting for a few of the other grades to get themselves across the line, but Jenny's still in a position with 2 races remaining. She can take out the series for sure.
Yeah, I think she probably will be a bit more fresh also in the coming weeks. She's been racing a lot in the longer Pro-Am races that we've had on Zwift, and it's been late nights, and I know she just finished a race last night at 9 p.m. So to back that up, it always is a bit harder, and the fact that she's so high up there still with that fatigue in her legs, I think is going to be to her advantage in the last couple of weeks of this series. So it's going to be really interesting and a good battle, I think, that we've got out on our hands in these final couple of weeks.
With 2 weeks to go, let's take a look at the standings in the battle to be crowned the winner of the Aero Army Wyn TT Series. It is, again, Zach Johnson. He's got that perfect record, 4 races, 4 wins, 40 points. Eddie Houle is the next best. He's just 1 point ahead of Kieran Lewis. It's a big race between those two. It's then Dominic Peloli, the young mountain biker, in 4th position. Carl Drury in 5th place, followed by Matt Robinson. Then Jesper Verhoeven, the Dutchman, in 7th place. Steinis Kamper in 8th position. David Mainwaring in 9th. Locked together on 7 points with Jaron Walker. Moving across to the next of our grades, which is B grade. Matt Sullivan it is who sits at the top of the standings there. And Matt, he found himself in 2nd position on the race today, so collected 9 points. Jeff Pyman, it is in 2nd position in the overall standings. Big gap between Sullivan and Pyman. It's then Byron Mitchell in 3rd position, locked together with Scott Kenneth, followed by Jacob McKee, Alex Smith and Andreas Menzies, all on 10 points. On 9 points is Tegs Engel. And then we have Luke McKenzie and Dizzy Star Cruz on 8 points. Now, the one I'm looking forward to, Carly, C grade. It's just as tight as it was at the start, as we see Ryan Mills still at the top with Noah DeWright, followed by David Byrne, Tori Otaki, Eddie. Let's do a little bit of a refresh on that one. I think that is still from the start. We'll quickly flick through here. There we go, C grade. So the numbers have changed ever so slightly, but the classification remains so tight. At the top of the table, it is still Ryan Mills, as he was at the start, on 20 points. This time it's David Byrne who moves up to be equal with him, also on 20 points, as Noah slips to 3rd place on 14 points. It's then Tori Otaki and Ebby in 4th and 5th place. Todd Cockshoot in 6th position, locked with Mark Padman. Then, I can't read, Mandarin in 6th position. Shine Nakajima is also in 6th place, followed by Jun Suk in 10th position. Let's now take a look at the D grade classification. And in D grade, At the start, it was Wendy Cho who was leading, and that's the case as well at the end of the fourth race. Wendy at the top of the table on 39 points ahead of Oliver Lenoeuse, who's on 27 points. It's then Ryan Nielsen. Cupcake Cartel, I just love it, in third position. Andrew Oy in fourth. Graham Arthur is the next best. Fifth position, we've got four riders, in fact, locked together in fifth place on 8 points. Graham is joined by Carly Rainey, Scott Dowling, and then Martin Deham. And then rounding out the top 10, both on 7 points, we have Shelley B and Kevin James. Now, for the women, it is still Jenny Pettinen at the top, but her advantage has been reduced significantly by Gabrielle Keeley. It's just a 5-point gap between those two. And with 2 races still to come, this one will come down to the wire. And Bronwyn McGregor is still in the mix as well in third position, just 10 points behind the lead. Busy Butterworth is in fourth position. Keely Gamble, who won the first 2 races, hasn't competed in the second 2. She's in fifth. We then have Kim Garland in sixth position, followed by Kath McKay. It's then Fran Bamburst in eighth spot. Aaron Mahan is in ninth position, and Jessica Bemrose rounds out the top 10. They are the standings, Carly Taylor. It is Zach Johnson dominating the men's, but every other series wide open.
Yeah, those B, C, D, and the women's grades are really tight battles, and it's going to be really interesting races. So, yeah, it's really exciting.
Well, 2 more races to go. And next week, it is the Bologna time trial. That's 8 kilometres, and it's really tough. You know it. It's uphill. And then it's Duchy Estate for the final one. Again, that is an 8-kilometre race. Unfortunately, I won't be in commentary with you. It'll be Pat Shaw. I'll be off commentating on the Tour de France, but I'll be following the results, and I'm looking forward to seeing who wins C grade.
Yeah, C grade, I think, is the most exciting grade at the moment, and the ones with the biggest numbers as well. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see how that ends up. And we'll definitely let you know how it does go, Matt. We'll send you live updates. And yeah, we're going to miss you as well in the next 2 weeks, but I'm sure you'll have some fun with the Tour de France coming up.
I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, Carly. Thanks to everybody for participating in particular. Good luck with the final 2 weeks of the Aero Army Wyn TT series, and I hope to see you out there online on Zwift. Right on.